Hello and welcome back to a new Rage Gaming video. My name is Olo and this time I've got something a little different for you, a bit of a discussion about the upcoming game Godfall. Godfall is a next-gen launch title we've known about for a couple of years now, and I've covered it on the channel in a few different ways. Apparently it's the first of its kind, the slasher version of a shooter-looter that'll have us using various melee weapons with their unique combo-based movesets to hunt gods and monsters through the use of our own godlike powers. We got godlike weapons, godlike armor, godlike gamer skill, maybe not that last one. We're super close to the release now, and finally we got some real details about the flow of the game and how it's going to work systematically, due to a hour-long dev Q&A stream a few days ago. So this seemed like a great time to talk about why I think Monster Hunter fans might really enjoy Godfall, because to me it seems like a game to have our eye on in case it does turn out to be something great, although I have some concerns that we'll talk about later. But why am I comparing it to Monster Hunter in any way? Aren't these fantasy knights using magic? Well, you've got me there, but let me explain. We're going to start with the combat because it's directly inspired by Monster Hunter. We're talking about an action RPG in a third-person camera based all around melee combat where we hunt loot and equip stronger gear and bigger and better weapons while fighting big bads. To start with, Godfall makes use of a weapon type system, clearly inspired by Monster Hunter through its combo system that we'll talk about in a second. At launch though, we'll have 5 main weapon types that we've seen throughout all of the trailers. The long swords, great swords, warhammers, pole arms, and the dual blades. The movesets of each weapon will be the same, while the many variations on the types, let's say long swords, will have different visuals and many different mechanical effects from longsword to other longswords. But on top of the 5 weapons we'll also be able to make use of a deployable shield whatever weapon we're using, for both offensive and defensive use, because you can actually chain it into attack combos rather than just block or parry. Hell, you can actually throw it. I love the idea of the shield with things like slow weapons such as a greatsword or a hammer, because it gives those normally slow weapons a sudden quick attack between their normal slow swings, which is really useful. Now, as mentioned, Godfall has that familiar combo system that we did get a brief look at during the tutorial gameplay section we've seen now. We aren't sure that this is everything that the dual blades can do, because obviously in Monster Hunter, when you're in the training yard, it doesn't show you everything you could do with each of those 14 weapons either. Whatever the case though, we do get to see some things like light attack combos, breach attack combos, gap closers, and weapon techniques that need to be charged up before you can actually make use of them. In the case of dual blades, we see a northern and southern technique. Each weapon seems to come with 2 would be a good guess. However, unlike Monster Hunter, we can equip up to 2 weapons at once here, and then swap between them at will mid-combat based on your enemy and situation. A good example shown was, say, the wide-swinging greatsword for AoE pack clearing, and then the dual blades for single target DPS. Plus, we also got to see banners which can be dropped during combat to provide aura buffs for yourself and allies. So sorry, Hunting Horn players, they've basically reduced you to a banner in this game. Overall though, you'll target weak points of the enemies to give yourself better chances. You'll experience the heavy hit weight behind those attacks, while having really good control of your character through agile movement and making use of those specific weapon combos to get proper use out of your setup. It is very similar in design, with a few new things like weapon swapping spliced in there. So now let's talk about how this game is a looter slasher. The apparent first of its kind, but honestly, when you look at Monster Hunter, aren't we fighting to earn new equipment made from the targets we hunt? Aren't we collecting resources to craft or upgrade our weapons? That certainly seems familiar here. Is Monster Hunter a looter slasher, or is Godfall just pretentious? I don't know. In essence, we're constantly fighting to progress our strength through new and better equipment, and that's not the first time we've seen that, say, in Godfall. But the same does happen in Godfall. We're hunting weapons for our preferred playstyle, while grabbing new armor that's stronger than before and upgrading everything we have. But differently in Godfall, actually uniquely, the armor is a weapon. The Valor Plate system is really cool. At launch, we have 12 Valor Plates in the game to unlock and upgrade. Each Valor Plate comes with something called a Fury Activation Effect, which is basically their unique magical ability, and then passive effects that occur during that Fury period. We got to look at the Vertigo Valor Plate shown in the Q&A. This is a bug type Valor Plate that's apparently meant to symbolize wisdom, but we can view her as the electric type, giving you build paths for enhancing your attacks with electrical elemental damage. In the gameplay, she's shown as extremely agile while using those dual blades, constantly proccing the electrical effect for the best results. Mechanically though, the vertical valor plate works like this. You activate the Fury to send out a shockwave for air damage, then for the duration of that Fury, you'll deal shock damage on most of your attacks, and then do 100% more damage to enemies who are shocked already. So that certainly seems like a great valor plate to pair with the fastest weapons in the game, like the dual blades. Other valor plates we've had a bit of a look at were Typhon, which was crafted at the end of the gameplay section during that Q&A, which was described as the ideal valor plate for hunting monsters, but painfully, that's all the information we have on that one. We also did see a teaser look at the Hinterclaw valor plate. It's a white wolf that's obviously frost themed, and more than likely a different elemental valor plate like Vertigo, but this one for ice effects instead. In essence though, these armors are going to be straightforward to unlock in concept, but depending on the valor plate you're after, it'll be easier or harder to unlock depending on the resources required. The key here is that we'll be able to choose which valor plates we want to focus on and which we want to unlock first, which is similar to the way that we hunt for armor in all of Monster Hunter games. I think it's a really cool idea that we can have two weapon types to swap between at will, a deployable shield in whatever weapon style we're using, and then on top of that, the valor plate and its effects to manage too. It seems like we have a lot going on here, despite only having, say, 5 weapon types compared to the 14 in Monster Hunter, but it is buffered by that hybrid style, the weapon swapping, and obviously the valor plates. Now let's talk about boss battles. Monster Hunter has us hunting, obviously, monsters, right? Learning about them, tracking them, defeating them through the abuse of their various weaknesses while watching out for their strengths. You could consider monsters in Monster Hunter to basically be big boss battles that you prepare yourself for. In Godfall, throughout our progression in strength and collection of our gear and changing our playstyle entirely, we're hunting and fighting tons of enemies that are often giant mythical beasts. But the peak of the combat will come from those various major boss fights that are the centerpiece of the gameplay. So far, we've only seen glimpses of boss designs and teases, nothing major mechanically. Finally, due to that Q&A, we see a boss fight in action. The Thryax boss seems to be a fire beast that was locked away in the water realm, a sort of prisoner that we're gonna set free. This heavy leaping beast type makes use of big gap closing jumps and fire blasts in a cone in front of it, around it, AoE explosions, and lighting up sections of the boss room that you'll need to avoid because you don't want to get too toasty. Through evasion, well-timed parries, and positioning, you'll be able to beat this one down, but the voiceover during the gameplay basically explained that since it's blasting out fire from its mouth, it's ideal to stay on its flanks or behind it to avoid being set on fire. Dancing around the enemy, stunning it where possible, jumping out before it can retaliate, and it was showcased that the hitbox system in the game seems pretty solid. When it uses this literal laser beam, you can casually slide underneath it to entirely avoid damage, or you can just block it to reduce the damage but be knocked down. Each boss you defeat will drop a variety of useful loot and items. The more dangerous the boss, the better the loot, of course. But as a starting boss, since it was like, what, level 12? This is a good showcase of telegraphed attacks, intentional positioning, and accurate hitboxes. Now what I want to see is a major boss fight that occur at the end of each main story arc. Max level in this game is 50, and we just looked at a starting boss, so I really need to see more on that one. Next though, let's talk about hubs. With Monster Hunter, we function through a main hub, a town we constantly return to after every hunt to resupply, organize ourselves, and prepare ourselves for the next hunt. Godfall comes with its own hub too, which should be perfect for training with your current setup against AI constructs, since we have all the various weapon playstyles and the valor plate abilities to keep track of. It'll be important to actually practice what we've got. But importantly, in the hub, we'll go back and we'll swap between valor plates we've unlocked so far or work to unlock new ones. Here we choose our loadouts for our next venture. Here we upgrade or craft our equipment. And here we prepare our team for any co-op missions we're about to do. Through the map, you check out the world and the various realms inside it and choose what you're going to do next, deciding between story missions, boss missions, hunt missions, and unique missions. Hunts are apparently variants, deviants if you will, of the original boss that you fought before, but now made more challenging and different. Does that sound familiar? It's super familiar. And as I mentioned, yes, just like in Monster Hunter, we can beat the game entirely alone if you want, but this is a game designed to be played in co-op with up to 3 players at once, so just one down from most hunts in Monster Hunter. In most every story or cinematic trailer, we have seen teams working together and helping each other, but I haven't really seen any co-op in gameplay snippets that I've watched. And now we've had a look at one starting boss. If you think about that one because it's pretty small. What would that have been like with multiple players attacking it? Would it just be staggering over and over, like say 4 hunters after a Toby in Monster Hunter? Because that sounds, you know, really easy. But anyway, in conclusion, the game looks good to me as both a Souls and Monster Hunter fan, and naturally this is a massive Monster Hunter channel and I'm the guy that covers mostly variety, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about a game that could be compared and might be interesting to you guys. What do you think though? Does this game appeal to a Monster Hunter fan? The combat design is obviously super similar, but there's a lot more to the game than that, obviously. And though, yeah, I absolutely love Monster Hunter combat, those 14 weapons are incredible, it isn't the only thing about the game that makes it special. And another question we can ask is, how long will Godfall last? Once we reach the final main boss and complete that campaign, how does the game go from there? We know we have all the equipment to unlock, there's something called a Tower of Trials for scaling challenges, but we really need more details on the endgame. The grind just never stops in Monster Hunter, while Godfall has stats, equipment quality, and even 8 total slots to work on. The main question for me is, what kind of replayability does this game have? Is it just the tower or what? I think Godfall is an intriguing game that should appeal to both Souls and Monster Hunter fans, but I still have so many questions so close to release. So I would say this is definitely one to be aware of, but probably one to check out before you buy it. Let's see what that endgame's like, right? Either way, good luck with November while tons of games are releasing all at once and you might be deciding what to go for. Hopefully, maybe this video was useful to you in that regard. No matter what though, we still got Rise coming next year and I can't wait for that, but it's still good to have games like Godfall to maybe tie us over some while we wait. Until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and I'll see you in the next video.